Have you ever watched someone smile at you and felt, deep in your gut, that something behind it wasn't real? Not because they did anything wrong, not because you had any proof, you just knew. And 3 months later, everyone else finally saw what you saw on day one. If that's happened to you not once, not twice, but consistently across your entire life, then something about your mind works fundamentally differently than most people's. You're not paranoid, you're not negative, you're not the person who assumes the worst. You see structure in human behavior, the way some people hear melody in noise. You don't guess what people are doing. You recognize what they're about to do because you've already mapped the pattern. And you mapped it before they finished speaking. That sounds like a gift, until you realize what it actually costs. Picture this. You're at a gathering. Everyone is talking, laughing, enjoying the surface of the evening, but you're watching something else entirely. You're watching the way one person keeps steering the conversation back to themselves, the way another person's compliments always carry a small, buried edge underneath, the way someone in the corner is being slowly, quietly excluded and no one else has noticed. You see it all, in real time, and you can't turn it off. You go home, the house is quiet, and for the first time in hours, you feel like you can breathe. Not because you were anxious, but because in that room, your mind was working at a speed no one around you was operating at. And now, in the silence, you finally get to stop. That relief you feel when you're alone, that is not introversion. That is not antisocial preference. That is a mind that has been running processes no one else in that room was even aware of. Here is the difference between you and most people. Normal people see a friendly conversation. You see the micro-expression that contradicted the words. Normal people see a charming new colleague. You see the compliment that was actually a positioning move. Normal people see a group of friends having fun. You see the group dynamic slowly organizing around one person's mood. Normal people see a partner who is just stressed. You see stress that follows a recognizable withdrawal pattern from 3 months ago. Normal people see a friend who is just busy lately. You see the shape of someone slowly, deliberately distancing themselves. You are not imagining any of this. You are processing a layer of social information that most people never access. And the gap between what you see and what everyone else sees, that gap is where the isolation begins. Let me show you what your mind actually does. You notice when someone's story doesn't quite match the timeline they gave last week. You notice when someone mirrors your energy a little too perfectly, because real connection has friction, and this has none. You notice when someone asks about your life, but never remembers the answer, because the question was performance, not curiosity. You notice when a person's kindness arrives only when there's an audience. You notice when someone begins future faking, making promises about plans that are designed to create attachment, not commitment. You notice when a group has unconsciously organized itself around one person's mood, and nobody realizes they've been doing it for months. You notice when someone's apology has the structure of an apology, but none of the weight. And the strange part, the part that separates you from everyone else, is that you notice all of this before you have decided to notice it. Your mind just runs. You don't sit there analyzing. You are not consciously calculating. The pattern presents itself to you the way sound presents itself to someone with perfect pitch, automatically, effortlessly, whether you asked for it or not. Psychology has a name for this. It's called high pattern recognition, the cognitive ability to detect recurring structures, sequences, and behavioral templates in human interaction faster than the average person. People with this trait don't just observe behavior, they unconsciously catalog it. They store microdata tonal shifts, word choices, timing inconsistencies, emotional rhythms, and the brain cross-references it against thousands of previous patterns without being asked to. This is closely linked to hypervigilance, a heightened state of alertness often developed in environments where reading people accurately was a form of survival. It's linked to high perceptual sensitivity, the ability to detect subtle changes in emotional and social environments that most people never register. And it's linked to implicit pattern, learning the brain's ability to recognize behavioral sequences without any conscious effort at all. In many cases, this didn't develop because life was easy. It developed because at some point predicting human behavior was how you stayed safe, how you avoided conflict, how you protected yourself from someone whose actions were unpredictable, or whose moods were dangerous, or whose love felt conditional on your ability to read them accurately. Your mind became a pattern engine, and it never stopped running. Let me give you a way to understand what this feels like from the inside. Imagine walking through a city where every building looks normal from the outside. Same paint, same windows, same doors. Everyone around you sees a nice, ordinary street. But you, for some reason, can see the foundations. You can see which buildings have cracks running through the base, which ones are leaning slightly to one side, which ones look solid on the surface but are structurally unsound underneath. Everyone else walks past them comfortably. They see walls. You see weight distribution. Now imagine trying to explain to someone that the building they just moved into is unstable when the paint is fresh, the door is open, and everyone else thinks it's beautiful. That is what it feels like to have high pattern recognition in a world that operates on surfaces. You are not paranoid. You are just reading a deeper blueprint than anyone around you. So if you've been told you're too suspicious, you may actually be too perceptive. If you've been told you're too negative, you may actually be detecting something real that hasn't fully surfaced yet. If you've been told you overthink people, you may actually be processing social data at a depth most people never reach. You are not difficult to be around, you are difficult to fool. And for most of your life, the world has been punishing you for the second one. But here is where the real story begins. Because at first, this trait looks like a superpower. You avoid the wrong people. You anticipate betrayals. You know who to keep close and who to keep at a distance. Your instincts feel like intelligence. Then something shifts. You don't just notice patterns anymore. You predict trajectories. You see where a behavior is going before the person has finished deciding to go there. You know how the relationship ends before it has fully begun. And because you see it early, you grieve it early. You feel the ending of something while everyone else is still enjoying the beginning. You carry the weight of a truth that hasn't arrived yet. You watch the movie backwards, knowing the final scene, while everyone else is still in the opening credits. And over time, this does something to you. It teaches you that being right doesn't feel like victory. It feels like loneliness. Because being right about people consistently, accurately, painfully, means watching things fall apart in slow motion, while everyone around you is still smiling. But this is not the darkest part. The darkest part is what happens when the pattern recognition that protected you begins to imprison you. Because when your mind gets too good at reading people, something shifts slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. You stop seeing people as people, and you start seeing them as patterns. Let me show you exactly what that looks like. The first consequence is preemptive withdrawal. You begin pulling away from people before they have done anything wrong because you have already recognized the pattern. You have already seen the trajectory. And rather than waiting for the damage to arrive, you remove yourself, quietly, without explanation. You are not reacting to what happened. You are reacting to what you already know is going to happen. From the outside, that looks like coldness. From the inside, it feels like self-preservation. The second consequence is emotional foreclosure. You stop letting new people in, not because you are antisocial, but because your mind has already run the simulation. It has already shown you how this ends. And investing emotionally in something your pattern recognition has already flagged as temporary starts to feel like a waste of something you cannot afford to lose. The third consequence is chronic loneliness disguised as preference. You start telling yourself you prefer to be alone, that solitude is peaceful, that you don't need many people in your life. And some of that may be true, but underneath it, if you are honest, there is something else, a fatigue, a grief, a quiet exhaustion that comes from a lifetime of seeing too much, being right too often, and having no one who understands what that actually feels like. The fourth consequence is trust collapse. The more patterns you recognize, the harder trust becomes. Because trust requires uncertainty. It requires the willingness to not know exactly how someone will behave. And your mind has spent years eliminating that uncertainty, scanning, predicting, preparing for what comes next. So the very thing that keeps you safe becomes the thing that prevents you from ever fully resting inside a relationship. You are always half a step ahead, always waiting for the next data point, always testing whether the pattern will hold. And a mind that never stops testing can never fully love. Not because the love isn't there, but because part of you is always standing at a distance, watching, evaluating, predicting. So here is the question you may not want to hear. Are you actually protecting yourself? Or are you using your pattern recognition to avoid the one thing that still scares you, being wrong about someone, in a way that costs you something real? Are you isolating because people are genuinely unsafe? Or because your mind has become so skilled at predicting pain that it has started finding it everywhere, even where it does not exist yet? Is your solitude a choice? Or is it the only place left where your pattern recognition can finally stop running? Here is something that rarely gets said clearly enough. Pattern recognition can show you what people are doing, but it cannot always show you why. It can identify the behavior, but it can miss the context. It can predict the ending, but it can prevent you from ever experiencing the middle. And the middle, the uncertain, unresolved, unpredictable middle, is where every real human connection actually lives. You have spent your life reading patterns in people, but people are not only patterns. They are also contradictions. They are also growth. They are also surprise. They are also change. And sometimes rarely, quietly, beautifully, they are also exception. The question is whether your mind still has room for the exception, or whether the pattern has become the only thing it knows how to see. This is where the shift begins. The old mindset says, I see patterns in people. People are predictable. Predictable means unsafe. Unsafe means I should withdraw. Withdrawal keeps me safe. The realization is this: your pattern recognition developed to protect you in a specific environment, but it is now running in environments where the original threat no longer exists. Your mind is solving for a danger that may have already passed. The conscious choice is this: you can observe without immediately concluding. You can see a pattern and still allow someone the space to break it. You can trust your perception without letting it make every single decision for you. And the new mindset, the one that changes everything, is this: you don't need to stop seeing patterns. You need to stop letting patterns be the only thing you see. Here is something worth sitting with, quietly. Every once in a while, not often, not easily, but with enough time and enough patience, you will meet someone who does not follow the pattern. Someone whose warmth doesn't have a strategy underneath it. Someone whose consistency doesn't have a motive behind it. Someone who says what they means what they say, and doesn't shift when the audience changes. And your pattern recognition will notice that too. Because it doesn't only detect danger, it also detects safety. It also detects sincerity. It also detects the rare, clean signal of someone who is exactly who they appear to be. You haven't lost the ability to trust. You've just been waiting unconsciously, carefully, patiently for someone who earns it at the level your mind requires. And that is a higher standard than most people will ever operate at. But it is not an impossible one. The deepest irony of pattern recognition is this: the very thing that lets you see people more clearly than most is the same thing that can keep you from ever being fully seen yourself. Because the person who reads everyone rarely gets read. The person who understands everyone is rarely understood. The person who predicts behavior in others is rarely surprised by someone who takes the time to learn theirs. You have spent your life studying human nature from the outside. The real question, the harder, braver, more important question, is whether you are willing to let someone study yours. Not from behind armor, not from behind pattern, not from behind the safe, familiar distance of someone who already knows how this story ends, but from the open, uncertain, terrifying proximity of someone who is choosing for once not to predict the outcome. You were never too suspicious. You were never too guarded. You were never too much. You were a person who learned to read the world at a depth most people will never reach. and you paid for that depth with a kind of loneliness most people will never understand. But the pattern that kept you safe is not the same pattern that will keep you whole. Your mind became a fortress because a fortress was necessary, but fortresses are also prisons. And the same walls that once protected you can eventually become the walls that isolate you from the very thing you have been quietly, secretly hoping for your entire life. Connection. Real connection. The kind that isn't performance. The kind that doesn't have a pattern underneath it. The kind that surprises you because for once, someone is not what you predicted they would be. That kind of connection is rare. It is not something your mind can manufacture through recognition. It cannot be identified from a distance. It cannot be verified through pattern analysis. It can only be entered, slowly, cautiously, with the same intelligence you have used to protect yourself, but this time, redirected toward the possibility of being known. And that is the deeper transformation your mind is waiting for. Not to stop seeing, not to stop noticing, not to become naive or blind or easy to fool, but to remember that recognition without connection is only half of what a life is meant to be. You have mastered the first half, the reading, the predicting, the protecting. The second half, the being known, the being seen, the being received, is still waiting for you. The next chapter of your life may not be about seeing more clearly. It may be about choosing, for the first time, to let someone see you. Not the version of you that has already anticipated their reaction. Not the version of you that has already predicted how they'll respond. But the version of you that exists underneath the pattern engine. The one who has been quietly watching everyone else for so long, they have almost forgotten what it feels like to be watched with care in return. That version of you is still there, waiting, patient, unread, and it is worth showing to the right person, at the right time, in the right way. Not to everyone, not carelessly, not without discernment, but to someone, because the pattern recognition that has served you so faithfully, that has protected you, guided you, guarded you, was never meant to be a life sentence. It was meant to be a filter, and the whole point of a filter is that something eventually gets through. If something in this video named a part of your experience that no one has ever put into words for you before, you are exactly who this channel was made for. Subscribe. There is more here for the people who see too much, carry too quietly, and have spent too long wondering if anyone else moves through the world the way they do. And tell me in the comments, when was the moment you saw something in someone that took everyone else months to notice? I want to hear that story.